Welcome again, ladies and gentlemen, to Joe Stunner Boxing. Now, as you may be aware, over the next 7 days we have two very special fights coming up. Next weekend we've got Errol Spence against Terence Crawford. Fantastic fight, a little bit overdue maybe, but still a great fight. But before then, in UK time on Tuesday morning, alright, so that's going to be the 25th of July in the morning. This is UK time. Round about between 9 and 11 o'clock, we're going to have what may well turn out to be the fight of the year. It's certainly the one that, to me, I've been looking forward to the most because I love these smaller guys. And it is, of course, Stephen Fulton defending his WBC and WBO super-bantamweight belts over in Japan against the monster himself, Naoya Inoue. Right, now I think this is an incredible fight, a incredible matchup. I mean, hopefully the fight will live up to the matchup, but maybe I should say it's an incredible matchup, and we'll hope that it's a great fight because you've got Stephen Fulton. Both these guys are undefeated, very similar records. Fulton, 21 wins with only 8 KOs, no defeats, no draws. Excellent boxer. Fires, controls range beautifully. Fires punches in bunches, combinations. Very, very good at containing guys who have got a bit more power than him. And he'll need to do that against Naoya Inoue of Japan, the monster who is 24-0 with 21 KOs, no draws. Inoue, well, I'll tell you what, let's start with Stephen Fulton because he turned pro in 2014. And it wasn't, he won the IBO super bantamweight title back in 2019, but the IBO, of course, not really recognised as a proper one of the more reputable ruling bodies, even though, to be honest with you, their rankings and their officiating is actually better than a lot of the ruling bodies that are recognised. But he didn't really pick up a so-called major title until 2021 when he fought Angelo Leo, who was undefeated, 20-0 at the time, and he won the WBO World's Super Bantamweight title. He then went up against the WBC champ, who was Brandon Figueroa. He was undefeated, 22-0 and 1, and majority decision. The Angelo Leo fight was a unanimous decision. The Brandon Figueroa fight was a majority decision. And since then, he's had one more fight. That was in 2021. Then in 2022, he fought Daniel Roman and just wiped the floor with him, won a unanimous decision. To be honest with you, the lack of power is evident with Fulton because he hasn't scored a KO or a stoppage since 2019, August 2019, so that's almost 4 years ago. But does he need to? Because he is so skillful and so resilient and so busy. I know the smaller guys, have a reputation for firing more punches, obviously, and for being very sharp and fast. But this guy, he really is. I don't think he's reached his peak yet, or he's certainly. Against Figueroa. Figueroa was a good champion. Angelo Leo was good as well, and they were both undefeated. And he just, he outfought them as well as outthinking them. He's an orthodox fighter. He's about 5'7", Fulton. 71 inch reach, that sort of range. And he's in against Inoue, who of course is all about the power. But having said that, Inoue's skills are quite underrated. Inoue can box, make no mistake about it. You don't beat someone like Nonito Donaire twice and knock the hell out of him in the rematch without having some skill as well as power. But, I'm not going to go through his whole career. It's absolutely illustrious, Naoya Inoue. He's 30 years old now, so he's knocking on a bit for a small fella, but the guy's got no real miles on the clock. He's only had one really tough fight, and that was in the first fight against Donaire, where he proved his mettle. Did he ever? He had a broken eye socket and a broken nose and still managed to floor Donaire, who himself was a great fighter. Floored him in, I think it was the penultimate round with a body shot. Neither of these guys neglects the body. To be honest with you, from what I've seen of Fulton, I've seen quite a lot of him. He likes to headhunt, but he can whack to the body as well. And if he should really, that's one of my criticisms of him. He doesn't fire enough to the body. Inoue does, and uses the power upstairs and downstairs. Inoue won his first title, I think it was his 5th or 6th fight, which was the WBC light flyweight title. He then jumped over, he made a few defences, jumped over the flyweight division to superfly, picked up a win, picked up a belt, string of wins, and then he went on a bantamweight rampage, and that started with Jamie McDonnell in 2018, where he knocked McDonnell out in 1 round. McDonnell totally weight drained, looked awful on the scales, very predictable, got done in a round in under 2 minutes, and then he did Payano won Carlos Payano in 1 round. That was the following fight. Payano only once beaten previously. Knocked out previously unbeaten Emmanuel Rodriguez in 2 rounds. Then he fought Donaire and had that barn burner, 12-round unanimous decision. Then he fought Jason Maloney, stopped him in 7. Maloney only had 1 defeat, 21 wins. And he went on this absolute rampage, got rid of Donaire in two rounds, and then he completed all 4 belts, undisputed title at bantamweight, by stopping very, very negative Paul Butler in 11 rounds. Very negative Butler. That's the only reason Butler was there, was to survive, and he didn't. He got knocked out in the 11th round, and deserved to be knocked out because it was a total non-effort by Butler. So he's the smaller man, Inoue. I think he's at least 2 inches shorter, so he's about 5'5", and his reach is about 3 inches, 4 inches shorter. So you would expect, okay, this guy's totally dominated at bantamweight. He's 30, so he's probably going to carry that extra 4 pounds up to super bantam very well. But Fulton's the bigger man, but will it be enough? Will that 4 pounds be enough in terms of size? How does Fulton make the weight? Pretty well, as far as we know. I've not read anything or seen anything that suggests he doesn't. But he's going to have to, for over a 12-round period, he is going to have to keep Inoue at bay, because Inoue has fight-ending power to the body and the head. And I don't think it's going to, because Fulton's a bigger guy, he's going to soak up the punishment a lot less painfully than some of the smaller guys. How do I see this? I mean, they're both orthodox. How do I see it going? I think Inoue will start quickly. They'll be constantly putting pressure on Fulton. Fulton will start very busy, fire lots of combinations. Inoue will probably have a look at him for the first. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he was behind Inoue after 2 or 3 rounds. Then I think Inoue will start to turn it on once he's felt the power and maybe had a look at Fulton's rhythm. I see Inoue going to the body quite a bit. I think Inoue, Fulton has a good jab, very, very good jab, but he can lead with the backhand as well. And I think Fulton will not need to neglect the body himself against Inoue, because Inoue is going to need to be contained, and you can do it with a jab consistently. But Fulton seems to be the type of guy who likes to. There's a touch of the machismo with him. Even though he hasn't got a great deal of power, he likes to get stuck in and throw punches. And I think he's got a slight macho element. I think he's going to want to taste a bit of Inoue's power just to see what it's all about. And the one thing about Inoue is, and I think there was an interview recently with Jason Maloney, who got stopped in 7 by Inoue. And he was floored twice, and he said the first time, no problem, and I was all right, I got up. Second time, I didn't even see where the punch came from. He said Inoue's strength is not just his power, but the speed that goes with it. And Fulton has fast hands and likes to throw, like I say, combinations all very, very quickly. If Inoue can punch between those shots, can get in close enough to punch in between the shots, and I don't see why he shouldn't be able to get in close enough. He's, as I say, he's got good skills himself. I think he can thread some very hurtful punches through the offense of Fulton. And maybe from rounds 4, 5, 6, I see Inoue kind of taking over. It's going to be competitive. What I think will happen is I think Fulton will eventually slow down a little bit, and perhaps defensively he'll become a bit slacker, and that will allow Inoue, who we know can take punishment because of the first Donaire fight with the broken eye socket and the broken nose, and he hung tough and pulled out a very good victory against another brilliant fighter. But I think if Fulton slows down and Inoue starts to get close, over the last 4 rounds, Inoue can really turn it on and actually hurt Fulton. I don't see Fulton being hurt early. I mean, he might get stung a little bit, maybe buzzed a little bit, but I don't think it's going to be enough early on. I think Inoue is going to have to work the power in with his technique. So I see the last 4 rounds, I see Inoue taking over and, you know, really putting it on Fulton. And Fulton, I think, is going to be ragged. Certainly by the last 3 rounds, he's going to be huffing and puffing. He's going to put so much work in early on. He's going to have to battle through those middle rounds just to keep containing Inoue. I see Inoue maybe taking over in the last third of the fight. So my prediction is that Naoya Inoue in Japan will win a close but not controversial decision over Stephen Fulton. I see Fulton surviving the distance. If there's going to be a stoppage, I think it's going to be late, like 10, 11, 12. But I think he'll probably last the distance. He might get beaten up in the last 3 rounds, but I can see him lasting the distance, and I think Inoue will pick up those 2 belts, the WBC and the WBO super-bantamweight belts, via a close but not controversial decision. So that's my prediction. Let me know yours. Leave your comments below, and I'll answer them. I always like to hear what you're thinking. I did a little poll, who's going to win this fight, and the overwhelming majority of you that voted said definitely Inoue, but we'll see. I wouldn't rule Fulton out. I mean, it wouldn't entirely surprise me if Fulton pinched a decision, but no, I think Inoue, especially in Japan, and they're fair in Japan, but I think he's going to win a close one. Let me know what you think. Leave your comments below. Like the video if you liked it. Thank you for your time. I always appreciate it. And if you could hit the subscribe button as well, that would be a big help. And yeah, this is going to be a great one. I've been so looking forward to this fight. This is going to be a great week for boxing. Let's hope that both these fights deliver.